Welcome to Let's Share, hosted by me, Leigh Byers, president and founder of Have Anita Ministry, a faith-based nonprofit that promotes the human interaction of sharing what we have and expressing what we need. The guests in the podcast are the people who I have connection stories with and have something meaningful to share in their communities of connection. Thank you for listening. Let's share. Wow, I am very excited to welcome an amazing woman here in Ocala who is a CEO of one of the most important nonprofits in this area that is faith-based. And so I'm going to go ahead and let her introduce herself. Go for it, Karla.
Good morning. I am Karla Greenway. I'm a native Floridian. I was born in Lakeland, Florida, lived there most of my life, and somehow ended up in Ocala about 25 years ago. And through the direction of the Lord, now I'm the CEO at Interfaith Emergency Services, which is a local charity. And I have a husband. I have 3 adult children and 1 grandchild. And of course, that's one of the things that rules my world right now is, being a grandparent. Do a little farming. We have a small backyard farm. I have a cow and 20 chickens, and we have a couple cats and a dog, and love my family, love my country, love my community.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing a little bit about yourself and your background and showing that you have a heart for humans and animals is awesome. And also just the idea of being a woman, that is my thing too. I wasn't born here, but my birth date is actually the day Florida was accepted in the United
Cool.
States. So I learned that in St. Augustine.
Oh,
And it's
great.
July 10th. So I think it's really cool that we have that alignment. And this is an area that is a growing area. We're in Ocala, and the growth rate here is kind of been like #1 in the country. Is that correct?
Yes, it's incredible the amount of people that are flooding in here. And what's exciting though is a lot of young professionals, which was the demographic that we were really lacking. And so, I think that's going to be really good for us long term to have so many young professionals here to make sure all of our businesses and industries are well run. But with that also brings another population, and that's who I'm serving.
Yes, and I've heard that, and that is exactly what I think is important for people to understand. It's amazing, yes, that there are companies and organizations and humans that are professional and funding that's coming in. However, there are also humans that are already here and coming in also who need to live in
Right.
a more affordable area because this area is supposedly 40% more affordable than many other areas
Mhm.
in the state of Florida. But it's also a lot of seniors, a lot of varied situations of people that are in struggling situations.
Mhm.
And of course, that is the mission and purpose of Interfaith, to serve. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about how the mission of Interfaith has been originally carried out and how it's
Mhm.
continuing. I would love to hear more about that.
Okay, so we are 42 years old. Interfaith was started when a group of local ministers were at a networking meeting, and the topic started regularly turning to, what are you doing with these people coming to your church for food? And what are you clothing and these basic needs, not necessarily spiritual needs. And they were all trying to do soup kitchens and clothing closets. And one person in the room said, hey, why don't we just pull all of our resources and create one place that we can refer people to, and they can do it efficiently. And that way people aren't having to go from church to piece together everything they need. And that's how Interfaith was born. It started in the back of one of those churches as a pantry. On the history I've learned from some of the original people involved that I've met, it moved from church to church for a while. And finally, when they decided to venture into shelter and a homeless shelter, we partnered with Blessed Trinity's nonprofit called Brothers Keepers, who was running a soup kitchen out of a former city facility. It was their maintenance facility. And there was a lot of space there, and they only needed the kitchen area. So they offered to let Interfaith come in and run a shelter there. And we have been partnering ever since. They do lunch there 365 days a year. And we've taken over the rest of the campus and created a shelter. It started out for men, but as times changed and the growing face of homelessness became more and more women and children, we changed our focus because we felt like they were the most vulnerable population to be homeless. And so we started that shelter. And then out of working with people, of course, our food ministry continued to grow that entire time to the point that we're the only pantry I know that's open 5 days a week. We run it like a business, 9 to 4 o'clock every day it's open. We were serving about 85 to 90 households a day. Now we're up to about 120 households a day. But out of working with that population, you start seeing, right in front of you these other needs. One of them was medication. People would come and in their intake experience, working with a counselor to get vetted for the food, we'd find out that they just got diagnosed with diabetes and couldn't afford their insulin or other life-saving medications. And so then we started a thrift store to fund a prescription medication program. And then out of our shelter, we realized that a lot of our homeless women that we were working with were using the ER as their primary care. And so that led us to go, okay, what can we do to remedy this? And we started working with a nonprofit that created a free clinic and started working with us. And now, that's just grown into other healthcare that we provide. And then another situation happened along the way where a school principal had a little boy in his office for putting spaghetti in his pocket. And this principal just happened to be on the board of Interfaith. And when he found out that it was because they didn't have food at home, he pulled a group of concerned citizens together and launched the Food for Kids program, which is a backpack weekend feeding program that we've operated for over 20 years. So again, as the years have gone on and the needs have increased, we've just tried to grow and keep up with them. Do even supportive housing now, because that's another need that I have a background in special ed, taught special needs children, and often wondered what happens to them when they become adults if their parents weren't capable of setting things up properly for them. And then I found out Interfaith, they end up on the streets. So we've expanded and now have supportive housing for people like that have handicapped, they're intellectually disabled, but were homeless because of their disability. So our services have just grown and expanded, but it's all been in a response to the needs that present in front of us every day.
Well, I really like the idea that it's interfaith, but it's not just interfaith, it is collaboration. Have a Need Ministry, the whole mission behind this is just giving plus receiving equals sharing, that we can't just think that we just give. We need to receive, whether it's in this situation, you all are willing to receive service and support from other organizations and vice versa. They're willing to share, with you. And this is the same component that's real sharing. The collaboration that you are doing is so important, because if you're carrying just all the loads without collaboration, it's too heavy and cannot be fully done. And it's very heavy in what you're doing anyway.
And I would say the secret to I hate to call it success because it's really not success, it's the favor of God. And the reason I think we've had favor with God is because we've had this mentality of giving to other nonprofits. Anytime we have another nonprofit come and serve, we don't ask them to help with a light bill. We don't ask them to help with anything. We even have property that we own that we have basically just blessed a nonprofit that helps men in recovery and said, we don't need this space, you use it and just help men, and you don't owe us anything. Just use it to help men, you change their lives. And that's been our mentality with every partner we've had. If we have space that they need, we just say, come use it. And I do believe that God honors that. And I think that's the reason we've been able to grow and expand at the rate we have. I made a deal with God when I first came because, the soup kitchen was on our property. And when I first came to Interfaith, to be quite transparent, we were struggling financially. And someone suggested, well, why don't we have the soup kitchen pay their portion of the light bill? But in my time with God, I made this vow to him that as long as you provide, I will never ask a partner agency for help. And I just trust God with it. And to me, that's like tithing into other ministries. And that's how we've operated. And I know God is pleased with that.
Well, I think what's really important, in addition to this being a podcast that's important for people locally to learn and be more connected, I think there are churches around the country and even around the world that could wake up to what this amazing nonprofit is doing. Because I worked in benevolence at a church, and I know what's happened since that season. Benevolence used to be a big thing individually with churches, but it's a very heavy load for each church to do individually.
Right.
And there ends up being challenges that don't play out. But if there could be collaboration amongst churches with an
Right.
organization that gets it, your faith,
Right.
it is a true way for the communities to be served without everybody being in a silo of
And one
service.
of the things I love about our name, when I first came, I'm like, I don't love that name. We should change it to something a little more flashy. But when I learned the history, the reason it was called Interfaith, and we've honestly got confused with this other organization called Interfaith Alliance, which is about, all different faiths coming together and tolerance. And so, when I first came, I had to do a lot of explaining that we're not that same group, but we named it Interfaith because there were more than one faith in the room. It was a group of ministers, and we had some Jewish rabbis in the room with us, but it was all denominations represented as well. And though while we're Christian faith based and follow the Christian faith, we love being that place where denominational lines and lines between different faiths are erased because we have support from the Hindu community. We have support from the Jewish community. We have support from a wide variety of Christian denominations and Catholic Church. So it's been such a beautiful thing to see the people of God coming together and serving because our volunteers represent that as well. We have over 400 volunteers that show up and serve every week, and they're from all different backgrounds. They're from all different denominations, all different belief systems. The interesting thing is, if we ever have anybody come who doesn't ascribe to a faith, they don't stay that way. When they come and work at Interfaith for a while, you can't work there without recognizing that there is a greater power, that there is a God in heaven that loves people. And that's why this ministry thrives. And so it's been fun to watch some people that are just good people come to give back because they're just good people that come back to their faith in Christ through volunteering.
It's a bigger picture when they actually see the coincidences of
Right?
provision. Oh, yeah, they're coincidences. Yes, these things just happen by accident. No.
No, no.
Those are true God's little miracles. It is so amazing to see what, again, you all have the bigger picture. Yes, you are a foundation in Jesus Christ, but the Lord was open to going into all different people's realms
Right.
and being
Exactly.
and modeling his walk on the
Mhm.
earth. So
Right.
I feel like this is an amazing organization to be able to represent that and to serve all kinds of people, still with the foundation of belief, but at the
Right.
same time, that foundation of belief is to serve and love others. That's what God wants. I think
Exactly.
it's fantastic. So, in terms of the big picture of what you see in the next year or the next 5 years, as this organization is in a city that's growing, as the
Mhm.
world is changing with things like AI, as there's a scenario of our country of different things taking place, that the state of Florida is one way compared to other states in the country.
Right.
What are some things that you see that Interfaith has in their strategic mission, vision?
Well, it's interesting because there's some things we're recognizing right now that we really have to look at, and we're going to have to add some resources to help us. And I gave a tour to a banker yesterday, a VP of one of our local banks. We were talking about the number of senior citizens that are becoming homeless because of the internet fraud and scams, the catfishing that's going on. It is astounding. And so the banks are trying to come up with education for people to recognize and deal with these. And so I'm hoping we can partner with them and have them come in and teach some of our clients and work with us when we have clients like that. Right now, actually, in the past month, we've had two women over the age of 70 in our shelter for that very reason. They give their money to someone that has committing fraud against them through the internet. There's things like that that are really on the horizon that we can't just ignore because that's a population that's going to end up at our door. And we have to be ready and have all the tools we need to help them come back into the truth and see what's going on. The other thing I'm really concerned about, because this is another population that we're seeing more and more of, that sometimes I think I need to quit my job at Interfaith and go lobby so the people that have the money in government know how they need to spend it. The rate of autism has just gone through the roof in our country. Well, as those autistic individuals are becoming adults, they're ending up on the streets. They're ending up at our door. We've had, again, two, a male and a female, recently in interfaith, that were 18, 19 years old, severely autistic, not capable of taking care of themselves, that they're in our lap. And we're very limited on what we can do because there's really no housing for them. There's no programs as adults for them. And if they are, there's a wait list of about 700. And these are things that I believe if our country doesn't get ahead of, we're going to have even more crisis of homelessness across the country, not just interfaith. But for our community, I want to get ahead of that. I want to try to come up with some plans or solutions or what we do or processes of how we work with them, what other agencies we can bring on board to help with that. We were fortunate in those two cases that we were able to reconnect them with family members in other parts of the country that were ready and willing to take them in and take care of them. But I know that's not going to always be the case. So, those are some things that we're bracing for.
I read an article recently about our governor who is making some efforts to expand mental health spaces
Yes.
for people. And thank goodness. And that fortunate situation of being in the state of Florida that there's some greater investment going on in some of these things. And yet I do think you're right. You would like to think that some of these people have family to help them, but that does not always play out.
No.
And it is a big deal for us to not only have this nonprofit going forward, interfaith, and seeing those things, but we need to be praying for that. And we do need, like you said, to be looking at the big picture of how this is going to carry through, as the seniors are more than the young people
Right.
right now. And how's this all going to carry out with caring for them when the seniors are not there anymore?
Right.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of things that are daunting on the horizon, but hopefully and prayerfully, we'll have leaders that'll recognize it and get ahead of it. And mental health is another tremendous issue that we deal with on a regular basis. It's funny because we have a training that we offer all of our staff. Actually, we require our staff to take. A gentleman created it who ran a homeless shelter for many years. He created it for librarians because homeless people, especially a lot with mental illness, tend to hang out at libraries during the day.
Mm-hmm.
And these librarians were like, we don't know how to deal with them. And so he did a training series to teach them how to identify danger from things that are normal for a certain medical issue, how to de-escalate, how to actually interact with them without triggering them or making them go into fight or flight. It's been a really helpful tool for us, but we deal with that more than people probably would imagine. The number of people that come on our campus that truly should probably be institutionalized. And I hate to say that, I know it's not popular, but we see them suffering on the streets. And out of our humanity and saying they should, have rights and be free, we're allowing them to live like animals and be abused on the streets and suffer. And I just feel like we could do so much better. I believe you can institutionalize people and not make it like an institution. I believe you can do it humanely and give them a quality of life. And I have this vision God's given me, but I don't believe I'm the one to carry it through. But I'm just praying that God will share this vision with some other people that I know are in this industry and have more power than I do. Because there are ways that we can get people off the streets that should not be wandering the streets, that maybe aren't safe for the rest of the community, or maybe are just a danger to themselves by being on the streets, that we could do it in a way that still gives them a quality of life and respects them as a human. But something has to be done. And I'm anxious to see, where this goes with Governor DeSantis and the funding he's bringing and what's going to be available. I saw a grant a couple of years ago, and I don't know who the funding was from, but it was somebody that said they wanted big ideas outside the box, and then there was no limit to the amount. At that time, I wasn't thinking along these lines. I thought, man, if I came across that grant again, I might be tempted. Because
Thanks for joining. And before we continue, I want to pause for a moment. The Let's Share podcast is part of Have a Need a Ministry, and we exist to shine a light on the incredible work nonprofits and others are doing in our community. If this conversation is inspiring you, would you consider supporting the podcast? Even a small donation helps us to share these stories. You can give directly through the link in our show notes or on our website. Every gift makes a difference, and together we're fueling impact. Let's continue.
I think there is a way to do it with enough funding to get it rolling. I don't even think it'd be cost prohibitive ongoing compared to what we're spending right now from law enforcement and in the jail time. It's absurd how our mentally ill are jailed but not housed. There's a lot of money being spent that people aren't willing to acknowledge that could be diverted and spent in a more cost effective and productive way.
Yes, I have a very important relative from the Oregon area where they have mental health people go with the police to help when
Yeah.
there's certain things going on. And I
Hmm.
feel like as much as there are conflicts and where people are politically one way or the other,
Hmm.
that makes perfect sense. And I come from a background of being an executive director of a mental health organization. Didn't mean I was a
Hmm.
therapist.
Right.
But I have a conceptualization of the trauma situations and different things that go on. And there are just limitations that can happen with somebody going to therapy once a week or something like that. Those things, when somebody's in a deeper
Hmm.
situation mentally, it's very challenging and they need much more of that. In fact, I just read an
Right.
amazing article today on how much people need supplements and the right nutrition to be able to
Isn't
be
that
mentally well.
isn't that amazing? The little
Yes.
things that we don't even pay attention to that could change the course of, our well-being. Yeah, that's fascinating. And I see our local police officers struggle because they took an oath to deal with crime. And then here they're called, and they know these people aren't criminals. They know they just have an illness, but yet they have to deal with it. And they're not trained to. They get some training, but it's not what they need to really be effective in those situations. And God bless them. I see some of them, they're so compassionate and they get a bad rap sometimes. If one bad thing happens, they all get that. But I see more law enforcement officers just showing extreme compassion to people with mental illness than otherwise. But yeah, I think that's a great model. I've heard of that model, the therapist going out with the police officers, and it makes perfect sense. If you are familiar at all with that arena, it just makes sense.
It's very difficult to put the police in a situation where they have to live on both sides of the coin.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly.
There's a balance of the brain focus when you
Right.
are responsible
Yeah,
to maintain the law, and yet you have the compassion for somebody, and there's a balance in the middle because they have to protect themselves, they have to protect other people, and
exactly.
sometimes, a mental health person could just make a total difference because even the person would not react the same way to a mental
Right.
health person than they would a
Exactly.
therapist comparatively
Yeah,
police officer who's wearing a uniform. There's some
exactly.
reactions that
Exactly.
are just without you even getting to know the person, there's a reaction. And so I
Hmm.
feel like this is definitely something people can be praying for as well. And I love the fact that you see the big picture and you're dealing with it on the front line. I see you as an executive leader, CEO, and yet you're on the front line. I see you walking around, on your social media posts. You're doing the work on top of the
Yeah.
fact of that. So
Yeah, I
it's
just don't.
amazing.
If I didn't do that, I couldn't do this job. I would just lose my zest. I just would lose my fuel. That's where I get fueled. Even last night, my husband and I, God bless him, we were at almost 8 o'clock last night. We're picking up a food drive. So, I mean, I feel like I need to be part of these things to really appreciate what my staff and volunteers deal with. And also, I love interacting with our donors because they're our life's blood. If we didn't have them, and I do believe that God impresses on everybody that gives. I don't, whether they realize it or not, the way I pray is, Lord, please tap the people on the shoulder that can help and inspire them to help. And when they answer that call, I want to meet these people. I want to give them hugs and thank them. And so that's always like I said, a shot of energy for me to get to go out and interact that way. But I also get the same thing from our clients. I love knowing who we're serving. I love what it feels like to interact with someone that no one else loves and be that one person that makes them feel valued. To me, that's better than a paycheck. And that's really, if I couldn't do that once in a while, I think I would burn out. I don't think I could do this job. And that's
Well, I
what
think
gives me
that's
energy
huge.
to go out and raise money. It's all tied together.
That is just a beautiful thing that you have that perspective of, you're a leader, you're top level, you're working with your team, but you also understand the importance of the front line. and,
Hmm.
seeing people face to face, and it keeps your mindset and your heart exactly where it's just serving amazingly in this community.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for that. I would love for you to share just a little bit about how you as well are doing the front line, but there's some social media that's going on, things like that. Where can people follow and learn about Interfaith? There is a website.
Yeah, we
And
have a website, iesmarion.org, and the I stands for interfaith, the E stands for emergency, S stands for services. So it's iesmarion.org. But if you just Google Interfaith Emergency Services Ocala, it will come up. If you can remember Interfaith Ocala, will probably come up because most people just refer to us as Interfaith. And we do have social media. We have an Instagram account, which I've got a goal to increase our followers on there by 100. I'm trying to get more followers on Instagram. I met my goal this year, but I'm going to set a new one for next year. It's Interfaith Emergency Services. That one might be Interfaith Ocala. On Facebook, it's Interfaith Emergency Services. And if you just search on Facebook, Interfaith Emergency Services, I think the first one that comes up. And if something else does come up, if you just add Ocala, then it takes you right to us. So
okay.
it's really just a matter of remembering our name. So Interfaith Emergency Services. And that'll pretty much get you to us wherever we're located on the net.
The capacity for people to be following Interfaith in these different locations. And one of the things that I like to encourage with Have a Need Ministry and do in our profile is share. Share when there's something on there that
Please.
could
Yes.
help somebody else, that
Right.
could encourage people to volunteer or donate or give or receive.
Hmm.
These are the things that social media can do, and you all are posting and providing information and details about what you're doing. So this is a way that people can serve and help, even on social media.
Right. Well, one of the things we want to use our social media more for is telling the stories of lives that are impacted. And when we have clients that are willing to be that vulnerable, we love to share it. And, there's no shame in it. And that's what I love about it. We don't want anyone to ever feel ashamed for needing us. We just want them to feel blessed. God put us here for them and feel valued because God loved them enough to create Interfaith for them. And so that's, how we ask people. But yeah, if you follow us, you at some point you will get to see some stories that are very heartwarming and touching and know that they're still good in the world. We also have a newsletter, which I know a lot of people have gotten away from newsletters, but our newsletter is really well read. I'm amazed at how many people subscribe to it and enjoy it and tell me, give me feedback. I love your stories. We don't spend money on the production of it. We're very low budget. It's not glossy. It's two color. It's, pretty much black and white, the one that's in print. If you subscribe to it online, which you can do on our webpage, you'll get the color version online. But every month we have department heads share stories, real stories of things that have happened in their departments. That's where you'll get to see the miracles that come into play. You get to see people's lives change. You get to see how God uses interfaith to bless people. And it's really uplifting. I even cry sometimes when I read it because I do one article and I don't read all the rest of the articles till it's published. And so when I sit in my office and read it, sometimes it brings me to tears. The things that we get to see and witness there at Interfaith and the lives we get to change and the burdens that we get to raise to relieve people of. Someone comes in and they're just told, if you don't, well, I'll give you a prime example. We've had young people come in with a new diagnosis of HIV, and there's a shot they can get, but it's very expensive. That if they get it, they will never get full blown AIDS. So it literally saves their lives. And we've had in the last few years, we've had two young individuals come in desperate for that. And when we're able to say, we got this, we're going to make sure you get the shot. The tears, knowing that you just literally saved a life, and they know that. There's just nothing better. And we can tell that story in black and white in a simple newsletter and share that with people. So really encourage people to get our newsletter and read it every month. And you can, like I said, go online on our webpage and it's available every month there too.
Well, I think that there's a beautiful thing about what's happening in the current, but an organization that's 42 plus years old, I can just tell you that I have very challenging seasons, and the ripple effect of how people served me to help me changed
Mhm.
my life. And I know that
there's got to be people that have amazing testimonies of what you all
Yes.
did that changed their life, and there might even be working for you, some of them.
Well, they are. I just realized I have about 6 or 7 staff right now that were clients, and
Amazing.
and that are an incredible staff, valuable team members.
That's how God uses it. We think in the moment, oh, we're helping this person, and then we don't realize that there might be a ripple effect of how that person's going to be impacting and saving others.
Yeah.
So it's never just one. There's a ripple
Mhm.
effect of the blessing. So thank you,
Exactly.
thank you, thank you for all that you all are doing. And Father, just be with them as they continue this service through the end of 2025 and all the way through 2026 and more. In Jesus'
Thank
name.
you. Amen.
Anything else you would like to say before we wrap up?
The source, the real CEO of Interfaith is God. He owns it, he leads it, he provides. And so if you tap into Interfaith, you're tapping into a relationship with God. He is the owner and author and real CEO of this organization.
You're the assistant CEO.
Exactly. I'm his puppet.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast today. And I am trusting that whoever's listening to this, if you need to share it or if you need to react to it by volunteering, serving, donating, or receiving, please do.
Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing your time listening to this Let's Share podcast. Our hope is that you receive some inspiration to give and receive, because giving plus receiving equals sharing. If you want to learn more about Have a Need a Ministry, go to haveaneedaministry.com. Look forward to connecting soon.